Welcome to Modern Ancestral Mamas. We are Corey and Christine, two millennial moms on a mission to bring ancestral wisdom to modern motherhood.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year. It is officially 2025.
Which feels wild. Ryan and I were just talking about how we feel like, because he's turning 39 this year, we were like, well, I am too, but he's turning 39 like in a couple weeks. I have until September. So, but we were just talking about how we feel like our 30s have just blown by.
I
just been
completely
so
agree with that.
fast.
Yeah.
And it's already 5 years post pandemic shutdown and everything. Like, that's insane.
Oh, whoa. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like it just happened, but it didn't.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay. How was your holiday?
Yeah.
Season.
Okay, you're right. We should do a little catch up, little catch up, guys. Okay. So this is another behind the mic episode, basically where Corey and I just chit chat about our lives and share a little bit about some topics that we have been wanting to cover with you guys. And so before we go into those topics, we're going to do a little update on how each of us are doing.
And on the show, because we have some fun things to share about the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And on the show. Yeah, no, the holidays were good for us. This was the year that we spent it with my in-laws. So we went to Palm Springs, California as just like a destination spot to spend for Christmas. I have never been to Palm Springs before. I was very impressed. It's the desert. So the weather was actually really nice.
It's the desert? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a desert.
Boy, that name is misleading.
I know. There were a lot of palm trees everywhere, but there was also a lot of cacti,
Okay.
a lot of dry, sandy dirt. And yeah, since it was the desert, it was cooler in the evenings, but pretty warm during the day. And we were able to be outside most of the time. A lot of hiking.
Nice.
Went to Joshua Tree, which I have never been to Joshua Tree before. I loved it. It's like a massive playground for kids. There's just like rocks everywhere, and kids can climb the rocks, and the trails are fairly flat, and you can hide in the rocks. And oh my gosh, they had a blast.
Oh, cool.
And then we spent New Year's in San Francisco with my in-laws. And yeah, I hadn't been to San Francisco in a while, maybe like a year and a half. And
I've never been to San Francisco.
Oh, really? It's
the only part of California I've ever been to is San Diego.
Well, San Diego's lovely.
Yeah.
I do really love.
Nice. But I was probably 14, maybe 13. So.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was reminded, I'm so sorry for any Bay Area people listening, that I prefer SoCal way more than Northern California. Sorry, guys. But, San Francisco's nice. We did Muir Woods. So the redwoods.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That's actually, I think, the third time I've been to Muir Woods. And
I would love to see the redwoods.
They're massive. They're huge. And the funny thing is, the last time I was there was in January, and it was freezing, and we were there again, and it was freezing. And
you need to time your trips better.
I know.
Go to Southern California in the winter.
Yes.
Northern California in the summer.
For sure. But it was beautiful. Did some really cool things. But I'm so glad to be back in Texas and in my own bed.
Yeah. You were gone for a while.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be out of your regular
routine, for sure.
Yeah. Yes. And just like your space and your stuff and your ability to cook,
my gosh,
all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's
that's funny that you
almost.
say that, because the second week that we were spending in San Francisco, thankfully that Sunday there was a farmer's market, and I was like, I need liver. I'm going to go insane if I don't have some liver. So I bought some liver. I made pate.
Did you guys have a kitchen then? You were staying somewhere with a kitchen?
Yeah, we were at an Airbnb the first week, and then the second week we were with my in-laws and at somebody's house, and so I was able to make.
Okay.
Yeah, we cooked. We cooked a lot, actually.
When you travel, do you take like liver supplements with you?
I don't actually know. I brought a binder, and I brought magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not bring liver with me, or liver supplements. I didn't even think about that. No, I try to find a farmer's market, which I did.
Yeah,
I
which
mean,
is easier in some places than others. Probably California would be easier to do that, but like, I don't know.
actually, okay, so this is really interesting. So, for those that are unaware, you can buy raw milk at the grocery store in California. You can just walk in and buy raw milk. However, if you have not been keeping up to date with what's been going on in California, Mark McAfee, who is the owner of Raw Farms and has been on our podcast before.
Yeah, we'll link that episode in the show notes.
Yeah.
I don't remember what number it is, so.
There is a lot of political unrest going on with raw milk, specifically in California, and Mark McAfee, because he's very outspoken, very well spoken about the
God
benefits
bless
of raw
him
milk.
for it.
And so my understanding is there was essentially an agreement between him and the powers that be that he would remove his product from the shelves for a month. So he couldn't sell anything for 1 month. He lost over $1 million
Oh my
worth of
gosh, that would
sales.
be so much you'd have to just throw away the milk.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. He lost $1 million worth of sales.
I hate that.
And I happened to be in California right in the middle of this, and I reached out to him and asked him like, "Oh, will I be able to get milk again?" And I was told Monday. I was like, "Okay, perfect." Went to the stores, nothing was there. Kept watching the news. They were like, "No, it's going to be another week." By the time we left, there was still no raw milk. Apparently, it was in some locations, but not just like where we happened to be. And the last that I heard from him was, as soon as we hit the shelves, guys, sell us out. Like, please
Right.
buy everything you can because we've lost so much money in revenue. And,
And we need to send a message that, no, we want this. As consumers, we want this product. So yeah, if
yeah.
you're in California or any of the other stores, because he's able to sell like raw kefir and some stuff in other stores. So if you're in any of the other states that he's able to sell those products in, if you see it on the shelf, buy it, please. Because their farm needs to recoup that money and to stay in business. And we need to be sending a message that the American consumers want access to this food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lord, I hate that so much.
Corey, what about you? Tell us about your Christmas and New Year's.
So my family, this is such a bummer. My husband always takes off like 2 weeks-ish. He is basically his own boss, so he can make his schedule and he's able to kind of like just take off, and it's awesome. And we had all these plans. We're like, we're going to work on building this treehouse that we've been working on. And on his first day off, the whole like, I don't remember who got sick first, but like it was like kid, husband, kid. Everybody was sick except me. I like knock on wood, almost never get sick.
Wow.
But they all had, I guess it's the flu. I mean, we never really did testing. You can just kind of manage it at home. But he was the most sick, him and my youngest, my 4-year-old. And everybody else was sick for kind of like a day. And then they were just kind of like tired and recovering, but didn't have a fever or anything like that. But he had a fever and the little one had a fever for a while. So anyway, it just kind of bombed our Christmas holiday.
Totally.
Thankfully, they were better before, like the Monday before Christmas. Everybody was better. We were able to have family over for like a game night, which was really nice because my sister was in town. And then, throughout the rest of the holiday, we were able to see my sister. Nobody else got sick again, which thank God. Yeah, so we are starting back school like next week. And
yeah, are you going to start on Monday?
We're not going to start on Monday. We're processing our chickens on Monday.
Oh, okay.
Because the family that we process chickens with, the husband is on a rotating schedule at work. And so he has a Monday off. He doesn't have any weekends off. So we just had to just do it on Monday. So we'll start school again on Tuesday. And we're kind of going to do a like slow work into it sort of thing because I know it'll be kind of rough getting back into the routine of that.
For sure.
Especially after chicken processing, which is just exhausting. Like, I don't know. You've never done that, right?
No.
All right, well, fly out here for Monday and you can
really
help us. Yeah, because we're doing it on a Monday, usually my brother will come or a couple of neighbors will come and help us, but because it's a Monday, we only have Ryan and I, our children, and then our friends and their children. All of their kids are really little though. So my kids are going to be watching their kids and their younger siblings. So it's basically 4 adults processing 70-ish birds.
Wow. Do you guys split them then?
Well, so we buy them all together because the shipping is better if you buy them in bulk, basically.
Okay.
And then they raise theirs at their house. They raise about 30 and we raise about 50 at our house. And then we just process them all together because we have the equipment in the space at our house to be able to do that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh my gosh. And then how many deep freezers do you need to fit 50 chickens?
Okay, so we have a really, really big chest freezer. And that will hold all of those birds. And then there's room for some other things in there too. So,
do you process them all whole? Meaning, or do you cut any of them into like legs or wings or I don't know?
the first time we did them all whole. We didn't do any parts.
Okay.
The second time we did it, we did part some out. And I found that it wasn't as useful because when I'm parting them out, it just ended up with like a weird amount of things. So people ask me this because I have a wing recipe that I have that's like really good.
Yeah.
On my Instagram. And people are like, well, do you process your birds to have wings? And I don't, because how many wings do you have to make a meal for a family of 6? It's quite a lot.
A ton.
Yeah. So for me to then part out that many birds, it would pretty much be, I don't even know, like half my stock of birds.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I end up with a whole bunch of legs that are, I don't know. It just, so if I ever want to have just parts, I'll buy them.
Okay.
But I almost never do. It's very, very rare that I cook with just parts unless it's wings, which even still, I maybe do it every couple of months. Like, it's just not practical. So, yeah. Okay, but I had a story I wanted to share, and I'm going to share it on my Instagram, so you might have a little of
twice
back over. Yeah, but I think it's pertinent to what we're going to be talking about today. So my father-in-law bought a house down here where we live, which is amazing. So he's going to be living down here part-time. He just bought this house literally yesterday, and we were helping him move all of his stuff into the house yesterday. And at the end of the day, like, I had brought food for my kids. They'd eaten eaten through all of the food I had brought for them. At the end of the day, he's like, hey, I'm going to run up to the Domino's and get pizza for everybody. And I was like, okay, be gracious. Like,
yeah.
So he does that. He comes back with 2 2-liter bottles of soda. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So my kids had drank all their water. There's no water. The water is not really drinkable where we live without filtering it and all this thing. So I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So I let them have like half a cup's worth of Sprite. Okay. And we get back to my house afterwards, and we're trying to put the kids to bed, and they're just bouncing. They're just like insane little creatures. Okay. And I'm laying down with my littlest one. The other 2 girls are in the bedroom too, because my one daughter is displaced because my father-in-law has to sleep in her room, blah, blah, blah. So there's 3 girls in this room, and they're just like, and I'm like, shut up. It's time to go to sleep. And my littlest is just like, she cannot settle. Like, the older 2 took them a little while, but they finally settled after about 20 minutes. She took like an hour to finally relax. And she didn't even relax. She was just like, blah, 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 and like flipping around and like moving all over the place, and then crash. And she was like out. But it was like an hour of her going, blah, 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 and then just dead. And it made me realize, I mean, when we got home, I did give them some charcoal. So I was like, we need to not have this in your system forever. But it made me realize that, or it reminded me, is what I should say, that I don't think most people, adults or children, know what it is like to feel good. I don't think most people know, and I don't think most people have ever experienced their children feeling good, because like that is normal, quote, normal, a normal way for a child to be, right? Bouncing off the walls, going crazy at night. And I'm not saying my kids never have a hard time going to sleep. That's not true. But I do think that as a country, we don't really know what it's like to feel good, and we don't really know what it's like to see our children in a state of really being nourished and not being dysregulated by junk. And I don't know, junk sometimes feels like a really strong word to me, but foods that are not serving them, because even goldfish or granola bars or trail mix or cereal, like these are all super normal foods for children to be eating. And they are foods that are disrupting to their systems. So that was
Oh
the
my
story I
gosh.
wanted to tell.
No, that's so interesting that you shared that story, because I kind of had a little revelation while we were away from home for 2 weeks. And
with people who don't eat like you do.
exactly. Yeah. And I think that overall it was really good, meaning that we did a lot of home cooked meals. Every single dinner was a home cooked meal. Every single breakfast was a home cooked meal. And we had access to like Whole Foods and Sprouts. And so we were able to get ingredients from there. There was a farmer's market one week and we were able to go there, kind of thing. But there was still a lot of, eating lunch out or treats, a lot of treats, because we're with grandparents and grandparents love treats. But one of the things that I realized was just how important nutrient density is. And even though they were still eating fairly good food, meaning a vegetable, a protein, a starch for dinner, almost none of that food was truly nutrient dense. Like I would venture to say, because remember, we didn't have access to raw milk, so no raw dairy. And yes, they were eating meat. And so every time they were eating meat, I was like, okay, all right, like there's one good macronutrient or, food that they're eating. But we weren't eating organ meats, we weren't eating raw dairy, we weren't eating ferments, we weren't eating broth, like none of that. And it made me realize just how lacking even a fairly decent American diet is in nutrient density.
Mm.
I thought that was really interesting. And by the end of the 2 weeks, like I personally could feel the difference in my body. I could see it in my kids. I told you by the second week I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need pate. Like I absolutely have to I need it." And so, I made some, and initially the kids were like, "No, I don't want any," but I actually, I didn't give them an option. I was like, "You have to eat pate. We haven't had any very nutritious food since we've been here." And once they started eating it, 2 of my 3 couldn't stop. Like they were just like eating it from the container. So, it's that's another piece to it that I think you're right. The average individual, I don't think is aware of how good they can feel. And we've heard this said so many times before that our health is our birthright. Like optimal health is our birthright. So why wouldn't we want to pursue it? But I don't know.
I think that I have come to the point of not really loving the like extreme elimination diet type things. I think that there's depending maybe on your personality, they could be harmful or at least create stumbling blocks. However, even though it I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Even though like I went into kind of a orthorexia style eating disorder after I did a Whole30, I still think that unless you have done something like that where there's almost an extreme shift, it's very difficult to experience that change in how you feel. And the reason is because it's so drastic and usually happens within 2 weeks of doing something like a Whole30. Now, I think you may be able to do that with more without cutting out all those food groups, because with a Whole30 you're cutting out grains and legumes and dairy and alcohol, which is a good thing to cut out. But there's like a bunch of things in there that you're cutting out that are good to just cut out because they're not serving you well. But there are also things in there that we would consider still whole foods and still good parts of a balanced diet. But so I think you could recreate that same style of experiment, but still incorporating those things. It just may take a little bit longer. I don't know. Anyway, it's something interesting to think about if you've never experienced that, to maybe think about trying something like that and doing it in a way that is not going to be detrimental to your mental health, because that is also really important. But it is like, it's mind-blowing the difference in the way that you feel. And once you kind of get like attuned to feeling that way, like I noticed right away when I ate that slice of pizza last night, I was like, shoot, like this is not worth it. Like I know, like I can feel it not being worth it. So, and that's one of those things, like once you know, then you can make the choices as to whether it would be worth it or not for you to eat that or not.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting that you say that. It doesn't feel worth it to you. I made the decision a while ago. I made that decision about alcohol. Like I was like, it
Yeah.
is not worth it for me. I don't feel any benefits from it at all. So admittedly, I don't drink anymore. I haven't for a few years now. But yeah, I've definitely thought about the whole like in the moment when you're like have to make a decision, is this worth it for me? Do I want to feel like this afterwards? Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it
Had
might
that.
be. Like maybe
Yeah.
it is, and that's a fine choice to make. But it's an informed consent thing, right? Like if you know
Yeah.
what you're getting yourself into and you choose to do that, fine. That was your choice.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
Do
Like
you?
yeah.
All of this ties into what we want to talk about today, which is the MAHA movement. We basically wanted to talk about the truth about the MAHA movement, which is the Make America Healthy Again. And we wanted to share our personal opinions. These are all our opinions. Okay. Just clarifying that.
So that's a good clarification.
Yeah. And with, post this publishing of this episode, we'd love to hear your thoughts, whether it's in reviews or comments online. We'd love to know what you guys think about it. And if you agree with us or disagree or aren't sure. So, what did you want to start with, Corey?
All right, we'll just go through what I wrote on our outline. All right, so on New Year's Eve, I got stuck in a scrolling feed, scrolling death spiral, because this tweet popped up. Okay, and this is what the tweet says. This is from a user called Dear Clarissa. Okay, so she says, I have no idea who this person is. It's just like came up as a, suggested, you might be interested in this sort of thing. So shoot, my phone slid down. Okay. It says, this is what her tweet said. As an Asian recipe developer for whole sesame oil is a cherished pantry staple. I feel attacked by the anti-seed oil rhetoric with like those swirly eye emojis. So I read through all of the comments, and some of it, they were mixed. There were some that were like, no, seed oils are terrible for you. And some that were calling it like seed oil hysteria, and like RFK has started a movement of classism and racism and white supremacy and and let me see, there was some, the ones that really got me that were one said this: it's so dumb. The message should be reduce ultra processed foods and cook more at home with your seed oils. Ugh, okay. And then a bunch of them were saying things like, everybody who is claiming seed oils are bad for you are just jumping on this trend and have no foundation for their claims. Okay. So that's most of what was coming out. And then there were some really ugly ones that were saying things like, it's okay, the seed oil people are also the raw milk people, so they're all going to have heart attacks from eating tallow and die from bird flu. So we're just going to wait them out. And I just want to say that that is so ugly. Like, I cannot imagine telling somebody to their face, I hope you die from bird flu because of the choices that you're, or like, I hope that if you get sick, you don't go to the hospital because you're the one that chose to drink the raw milk. And I want to be like, have you ever chosen to eat spinach from a bag at the grocery store? Because you're more likely to get sick from that than you are from raw milk. So thank you. But also, who's going to say, like, who says to people, I hope you die? I just think it's so ugly and so just low. It's low and ugly. And I really, truly hope that our country doesn't actually feel like that. Like, it just makes me sad.
I mean, oh man, this is the world that we live in right now with
I
the
know.
internet, in which people can hide behind a screen and say whatever they want.
Yeah. I hate it. I hate that. I think the internet has some really amazing things, and I think that part of it is awful, and I hate it.
Wait, but I want to go back to this tweet.
Yes,
Okay. The
please.
tweet of, as an Asian recipe developer, sesame oil is a
I think it's supposed
cherished,
to say for
yeah,
whom
for whom? Yeah.
sesame oil.
Okay.
I
Sesame
must
oil
have.
is a cherished pantry staple. Okay,
Mhm.
guys. We have had an Asian recipe developer on our show.
Yeah,
Her name
and
is
I
Sophia
specifically
Eng.
asked her.
Yes.
Mhm.
She has a book out. We asked about sesame oil. We wanted to know. And her response was, it is only a finishing oil. It is not meant
Yeah,
to be cooked with.
and if you've ever bought sesame oil, it comes in a really small bottle,
Yes,
and
yes, and it's so expensive.
it's very expensive. There's no way you're using that to fry your food in.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that it would be used as a finishing oil. Plus, sesame oil is not at all the same process. If you're buying a good sesame oil, it's not the same process as industrial seed oils. So maybe that's what we really need to be clarifying, is that we're talking about industrialized seed oils. We're not talking about, you know, in Deep Nutrition by Dr. Catherine Shanahan, she talks about how you could make seed oil with like two rocks, and you bang them together, and eventually with some, over some seeds, and eventually some oil will come out. She's like, that's not the same thing as canola oil. Like, you could even take rapeseed, which is what canola oil is made from, and bang some rocks together with the seeds in the middle, and you could get canola oil technically. And you sure eat that, but that's not what we're talking about here. So, Christine, you wanted to talk about the molecular level of these seed oils,
I
so this is a
did.
good time.
This drives me nuts. So when people online are saying things like, oh, we shouldn't fear the seed oils. Of course, they're safe for us. This is just a trend that people are getting on. I understand that not everybody gets the molecular structure of fats, but this is where this comes into play, because people are obsessed with the science and they want to know what the science says. And the science says that actually molecularly speaking, saturated fats are more stable because, think about it, folks, okay? Well, okay, maybe I should just explain it, but they're made up of saturated fats are molecules that are made up of carbon chains. They have no double bonds between the carbon atoms. So this means that each carbon atom is saturated with a hydrogen atom, and that's what helps make it stable. That's why it is solid at room temperature. This is why it has a higher smoke point. This basically means that it is a stable fat. It is all fats are susceptible to oxygen, light, and heat, all of them. Okay. All at varying degrees can they go rancid when they are exposed to oxygen, light, or heat. When we're talking about seed oils, they are polyunsaturated fats. So this means that they are very unstable. There's more kinks in their chain, and they are very sensitive to light, heat, and oxygen. They can go rancid quicker. So to say that the seed oil conversation is just a trend, to me feels incredibly ridiculous, and it's a farce. Like, if we just look at the structure of each of these fats, we can understand that no, they should not be heated at high temperatures. No, they should not be exposed to light or oxygen for a long time, which is all those three things are happening in the processing of these seed oils.
Yep.
So, and then, I mean, Corey, you've made a really good point before about the fact that they've only been around since what, the 1960s, 1970s?
Right. So canola oil was invented. I wrote down the date.
I think the
In
1970s.
was it 7D? Shoot, where is it? Yeah, so 1970. So to say that seed oil or anti-seed oils are the rhetoric around anti-seed oils is what's trendy is kind of ridiculous. Like, something that has only been around, it's been around for less than 100 years in our food
Yes.
system. That's the trend, people.
Yeah.
Humans and food has been around forever,
Yeah.
right? All of recorded history. That's more than less than 100 years. So, or it's almost like, I don't know. I almost get just exhausted having this conversation because it's the same thing with raw milk. It's the same thing with um sourdough. Yeah, like the things that are trendy are industrialized yeast and pasteurizing and these industrial seed oils. And it's not that, like, because the argument is that, well, pasteurization came around and now we have healthier food. There's so like, go back and listen to the episode with Mark McAfee on that one. And anyway, it gets like, it's almost like my head starts spinning when people start saying that stuff. I do want to say that there is a video on YouTube, and I'll send it to you to put in the show notes, that really explains with some visuals the seed oil molecule structure. If you are visual, that's a really good one to watch. And it goes through how these are made, how these seed oils are made, because if you understand the industrial process that seed oils have to go to get to your house,
Mhm.
it's almost, I mean, it's relatively crazy. But I have a quote from Dr. Casey Means
Mhm.
that says, this
Yeah,
is
read
just
it.
really simple. The case against these refined vegetable and seed oils is very simple. These oils are extremely high in omega-6 fats, which skews out omega-6 to omega-3 ratios and increases inflammation in the body. So essentially, your body should have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. Okay? The seed oils are, from the research that I have done, can be anywhere from like 50-to-1 of 6-to-3, or even higher than that. So if your goal in your body is to have a 1-to-1 ratio, you're not going to get that if you're including seed oils. And that's one of the main reasons that these things are not serving your body well.
Yeah. Yeah, and things that we've talked about before is seed oils are rancid when they come out of the factory. The process it takes to make industrial seed oils is nothing like what would have been done before the Industrial Revolution and all of that.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel like we've beaten a dead horse when it comes to talking about seed oils.
Fair.
On all of our episodes, it's a hot topic. In general, right now, because of the MAHA movement, it's a hot topic. I think for me personally, I try to avoid them as much as possible. I even go so far as to, if I know I'm going to be eating out at a restaurant, I am oftentimes calling ahead. I'm just asking. I'm using Seed Oil Scout when I can, which is an app that tells you restaurants. I'm also using 12 Spoons from the Weston A. Price Foundation. Just things like that. I think there's another one, something about tallow. I don't remember what that one is called.
Oh, cool.
There's one other. Anyway.
Yeah, I think I do want to say, because one of the things that they accuse people who are talking about this of is having no research and having no solid evidence, which is absolutely ludicrous. And I just want to throw out there, if you want to dive into research, you can look at Dr. Kate Shanahan's books, which is Deep Nutrition and Dark Calories.
Yeah, Nutrition and Dark Calories, right?
No, her Deep Nutrition is the first one, and then Dark Calories is the newest book she's come out with. That one is almost entirely about seed oils. Okay. She's a medical doctor, so she knows how to read those things. If you don't trust people like Christine and I to be able to read research, which is another conversation. Excuse me. The next one that I have on the list is Real Food for Pregnancy by Lily Nichols, and she's a registered dietitian. So again, she knows how to read studies. Not like you need a degree to be able to read studies, but some people say you do. And her book is chock full of references. Good Energy by Casey and Kelly Means. And always our fallback is Nourishing Traditions. And so Sally wrote that in 95. So to say that, it's only just now that people are talking about seed oils again, ridiculous. Because Sally started talking about it back in the 90s. And Mary Annig, who was her co-author, was talking about it then as well, or even before that, I think. So it's not new. It's just that all of the sudden it's now in the collective conversation.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, I think, to at least be having these conversations and opening up, opening the conversation to be able to have this discord.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Do you want to talk about your article?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I told Corey I really wanted to bring up this crazy article that I had read in the fall 2024 Weston A. Price Journal. So I'm going to plug WAPF real quick. Become a member. When you're a member, you get quarterly journals. They're filled with tons of valuable information. And they have really interesting articles, both super scientific and then articles for the layperson as well. And with this whole MAHA movement that's been going on, that is now in the public spotlight, three-letter agencies like the FDA, the CDC, the USDA, all of these organizations are being talked about constantly. And the discord seems to be, well, we need these because they protect the people, and they protect the people from dangerous foods or chemicals that could be in our food system, and things like that. One argument could be, are they really? We'll let you guys decide on that. But I just read this article and immediately thought how ironic it is that we feel like we have to outsource our knowledge of food to quote unquote experts and 3-letter agencies to make these decisions for us, when, as Corey has mentioned before, for a millennia, for as long as human beings have been alive, we have always known what to eat. And we have always been very, very close to our food source. And this is the first time in history that we are literally completely disconnected from our food source. I'll give you a little brief summary, which is basically a chef decides to go kayaking through Greenland and tries their traditional cuisines. Okay,
Yeah.
folks.
Do you want me to read this section?
Yeah, you're going to have to. When we're talking about traditional cuisines, we are talking, whoa, all right, this is like some pretty intense stuff. So go ahead and read the blurb for us. I highly recommend everybody reads it themselves. But
okay, so the article is called Eat Your Environment, Enjoying Greenland's Local Food by Mike Keane. Okay. And it has pictures and stuff in it of these foods, of his travels. And it's a long article. It's like a couple pages long. So one of the foods that he ate, and I'm super sorry that I'm not going to be able to pronounce this properly because there's no pronunciation guide in here and the letters don't make sense in English. The rather incredible food of kiviak is, to me, the holy grail of food preservation. I constantly refer back to it when food and or life seems to be getting complicated. Every April, little auk seabirds, black and white birds about the size of a partridge, gather by the millions on the sides of the mountaintops way up north in Greenland. I'm going to skip. Okay. So, to make kiviak, the fully intact birds, feathers, guts, heads, and legs still attached, are packed tightly inside a seal. The seal's insides have been removed to make way for anywhere between 300 and 500 little auks. Some swear by adding extra chunks of seal fat in with the whole bird. Birds, sorry, there's a bunch of them. The seal is then sewn up and placed underground or in a covered wooden box for several months. When unearthed and opened up, the birds look like wet black rags. To eat kiviak, you pick, or rather wipe away the feathers and
Corey, she can't even read it a second time.
It's so much. Okay. And pull the flesh off with your fingers. You also bite the back of the skull off and suck the brains and eyes out. Depending on the degree of fermentation, the meat varies from pulling off like a long and slow cooked hunk of meat to being softer, like a pate that can be smeared off and eaten with a finger. Of course, the guts are fair game as well. Okay. What does kiviak taste like? For me, every fermented meat that I've eaten can be best likened to a super strong blue cheese, one that takes a layer of skin off the roof of your mouth. The smell is stronger than the taste, but it's not unpleasant, and it gets better the more you eat it.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
You can just pause there. So I read this article and was just like, whoa, we are so disconnected from our food. Like, we are feeding our kids goldfish. And when you think about an average Greenland child who is probably eating something like that, think of how strong like the flavor is, the smell, the fermentation, and that's normal and that's safe and that's okay for these people to be eating food that has been fermented in the ground for 3 to 6 months. And yet we need the FDA to tell us whether we can drink unpasteurized milk or whether, I don't know, certain eggs are safe, or it's just, to me, it's infuriating. It's just a reminder for me. It was a reminder of how disconnected we are, how maybe I am like, this is a fault of mine, but I don't believe in the FDA. I don't believe in these agencies and that they have our health in their interest and that they know better than those of us who are cooking and feeding our families day in and day out.
So,
I don't know.
When I started learning how to can, which I still am not very good at. I don't do a lot. But I was reading a bunch of these like Facebook groups about canning, and they're international groups. And the Americans in the groups were talking about, well, our guidelines say we have to do this, this, and this. And all of the Europeans would comment, this is insane to me that you have an agency telling you how to do this. This is just something that I learned from my parents, And it's so interesting to me that would be, like as Americans, we just, there's, this is the standard that our government has put forth. And other countries don't have that. Now, I mean, to be fair, there are some standards that they have. In France, you can't make champagne unless it's from Champagne, or you can't call it champagne unless it's from Champagne, or they have like standards of what bread, like what can go into a basic loaf of bread or something like that. And that's been around since I think like the French Revolution or before the French Revolution, something where they just take their culinary history very seriously. But that's somewhat different than what our agencies are doing over here. So, yeah, I think that maybe leads us into more of the MAHA conversation. And I'm curious to know what your take is so far, because obviously we're recording this before the inauguration. So we are recording it with the information, and what's happened thus far. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. With RFK being appointed to the Health and Human Services Secretary. So that'll be interesting. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, do you think that his appointment is going to be useful?
I definitely feel hopeful that something good could come of it, but I'm also very reticent knowing that in the end, they are all politicians. And it's a much bigger game that they're playing that the average American is not privy to. And at the end of the day, I'm the one that's feeding my family, and I'm the one that's making the health choices for my family. And even if, let's say, some of these 3-letter agencies either get disbanded or maybe some of their recommendations are changed, I would still do my own research. I would still listen to my gut and do what I feel is right in my heart for my family and myself. Yeah. I am cautiously optimistic.
So what in like the ideal situation, what would you hope happens in the next 4 years?
You putting me on
I'm sorry.
the spotlight here.
I'm just curious. You don't have to answer it. We can skip that.
Yeah. What do I hope happens in the next 4 years? Okay, well, I would love for raw milk to be officially legal in all 50 states, and if possible, even maybe do what California is doing where we can buy it in grocery stores.
For the record, there are other states that allow in-store raw milk sales.
Yeah.
I know Pennsylvania and South Carolina are as well. Actually, let me jump in and interrupt you just for a second. Just for the record, there are only 4 states where raw milk is actually illegal.
Yeah.
And we've got to stop saying that it's illegal. And I am guilty of doing this on our show even. The only 4 states that it is truly illegal in are Hawaii, Nevada, District of Columbia, and Rhode Island. So unless you're in one of those 4 states, stop saying that it's illegal in your state. There are workarounds that people have worked really hard to get you. Please take advantage of them. Okay. Side note over.
I know. What else do I want to happen in the next 4 years? Are you going to answer this question too, Corey?
Sure. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I know. Well, admittedly, I haven't thought about it too much because I don't put a lot of stock into federal politicians.
Yep, I'm with you.
So I would love to see something happen with vaccines that hopefully trickles down into certain states, whether that is more choices for those that want an alternative route. Yeah. Trying to
Also, for the
think.
record, RFK and most people in the who would call themselves MAHA supporters are not anti-vaccine.
Yeah.
Are all
Actually,
just pro informed consent
okay.
and wanting more exemptions.
I thought of two things that I would really like.
Okay.
I think that it would be incredible if the 1986 Vaccine Act would be repealed. So for those that are not aware, that's what gives all vaccine manufacturers 100% liability for their product. That feels so incredibly wrong to me, and I think that that like it would be words could not describe how amazing that would be if that were to be repealed.
I every time I hear about banning foods or restricting foods or whatever, I think back to I don't know how long ago it was. I think my oldest was in a car seat and he may have been my only baby at that point. But there was a whole thing about New York was trying to ban the sizes of sodas that could be sold. Do you remember
Or
this?
tax them higher, something like
Yeah, there
that.
was something like that. And around the same time, and I'm pretty sure this was when this was like going along with Michelle Obama's initiative to make children healthier. So around that same time, McDonald's was also talking about or they like took salt off the fries or something.
Mm.
Like they weren't salting them and or they were offering children apple slices, like a smaller size fry and then also apple slices. And this was supposed to be, in support of healthier kids. And people were it's so funny because it's one of those shifts, right? So all the conservatives were up in arms about you can't tell me what I can eat and what I can drink, and all of the liberals were like, "This is so good for America." And
Oh, the irony.
it is. It's so funny. And we have friends, who will say, "I haven't changed. The party has changed." And I think that's probably right. And it's a weird place to be because I've always been in that sort of like in between.
Two more things. The first is something to be done about the medical system in the way doctors are trained. So right now doctors are trained by the pharmaceutical industry and they're basically just like pushing pills kind of thing. I think there needs to be a complete overhaul on the way doctors are trained, and all of that needs to be redone. That would be incredible. I'm going to tease this for a little bit, but there's a book that I'm reading right now. It's called The New Abnormal, the Biomedical Security State by Dr. Aaron Kheriaty. And I actually had the honor of seeing him present in person, and he was incredible. I'll post this book on my story so you guys can see it, and also we'll put it in the show notes. But it's really good. Anyway, he's writing a second book and a third book. And one of the things that I mentioned to him was, this is all great, everything that you're talking about, but what about the medical industry and how doctors are trained and all of this? And he said, "Oh, you just wait. That's my second book. I can't wait to, expose all of that." So, and I'm hoping that this is an individual who might get a position somewhere, but we'll see. So hopefully there is a change for the medical system and how that is being run. And then the last thing I was going to say was actually formula. I
Mm.
think that if we really, truly, as a nation, care about our children, we would take a serious look into infant formula and remove the seed oils from it and the sugar from it and just reformulate it essentially, or give people more access to making their own homemade formula.
Yeah, or some of that formula, the European formulas that are like goat milk based or other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are some
good
of what I
ones.
would like to see, some hopeful changes for the future, but also I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
Okay, now
Yeah,
you
that's
have
kind of
to
how
answer.
so that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm like, this sounds really cool. It does make me excited. I don't know if I feel hopeful. I like maybe am cautiously hopeful. That's kind of what you
Mhm.
said.
Yeah.
But I don't have much faith in the government. I don't have much faith in politicians. I don't have much faith in the political process. I mean,
Mhm.
okay, I think that what the founding fathers set up was a good system, but there's so much red tape and so much pushback from people. So like what bothers me is that this should not be a political movement, right? It and I really, really wish that we could get beyond the bipartisanness of it because it
Mhm.
doesn't make any sense to me for this to be political. It doesn't make any sense to me that this should be something that is dividing us. And that is one of my biggest consternations with the whole thing is that it's so bipartisan and that's harmful to the movement, to the idea of make America healthy again. I'm back and forth on it. Like I sometimes am with Joel Salatin on, I don't want things banned necessarily, but then I also understand the people like Alex Clark and Vani Hari who say, yeah, but these companies are not going to make a change unless they're forced to. And they've already said they're not going to change anything unless the government tells them to change it. So I don't know. I feel like we're between a rock and a hard place because I do think that education is much, much more powerful than um, government stepping in and banning ingredients. But half the country is not going to listen to the education because it's now a divisive conversation. So I'm
Mm.
a little like about that, and I don't know how to overcome. I don't know how the MAHA movement is going to overcome that stigma. And so in terms of like what I would really love to see happen, I would love to see more exemptions or at least more true informed consent when it comes to vaccines. And more exemptions for people who really don't have, because there's a bunch of state or at least one state we know of that is very, very difficult to get an exemption in that state. And that's really a shame for that state and the people who live there because not everybody has the opportunity to homeschool their kids to get out of that system. I also think that I think it's a good thing that more people are feeling like they can tell their stories, you know, of healing, but also of hurt from from the medical community, from vaccines, from the food industry. I think that the more of us that stand up and say, yeah, I was kicked out of my pediatrician's office for not following their schedule. Like I wasn't necessarily kicked out. I left voluntarily because I had been going to the same one for 8 years. And they all of a sudden were having people sign a form that said they would follow the CDC schedule. And I said, I'm not doing that. And so I voluntarily walked out after being a little bit of a Karen in the office. Um, but I think it's good to have those conversations. And I think we need to be having those because there are people who are, not able to find a pediatrician and or people who are so distrusting of the medical community that, they just don't take their they just don't go in. And I don't think that's what doctors want. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily have a list either, but I do like your list.
We'll see. We'll see what actually comes to fruition in the next 4 years. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, we'll see.
Crazy, crazy stuff.
What else do we have? I think that was it. Oh, wait. We have a little bit of update on the show to share. We are slowly but surely getting episodes up on YouTube. So y'all can go over there and see our faces for the first time in forever.
Bear with us as we get some of these. We are not going to put up all of the older episodes. We're just starting with a few of the older episodes. And as we do that, we are also figuring out the camera situation, the lighting situation. Obviously, both Corey and I have improved our audio situation.
Yeah, thank y'all for hanging with us while we had really crappy mics.
I know, right? No, we would love for you guys to subscribe if you're the type of person that prefers to watch episodes, and then stay tuned because like we were saying earlier, the video experience will improve as we continue.
Yeah. And I've had a bunch of people message me and say they can't figure out how to leave a review on Spotify.
Yeah, what is going on?
Don't think you can on Spotify.
Okay.
I think you can leave a star rating, but I don't think you can write a review. You can leave a star rating and write a review on Apple. And you can like and subscribe. Well, you can subscribe to the show on both Spotify and Apple. And then I was going to say you can like and subscribe videos, or you can subscribe to the channel on YouTube and like the videos. I got that right?
Yeah.
And then I also, okay, so I was going to read this because somebody couldn't figure out how to leave a review on Spotify. So she commented on one of our videos on Instagram, and I was just going to read it.
Yeah.
So her username is K Green Walt. I'm pretty sure that's how you would break that down. And it says, okay, I wasn't sure how to leave a comment anywhere on Spotify for your podcast, but if I could rate it, I would give it 10 stars. I became a mom at 21. Wow, man. I'm now 26. I'm 26-year-old mom of an almost 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I love capital LOVE your podcast. It's so inspiring to keep doing the things I'm already doing, but also learning more from you and your guest speakers. Also love how there is no liberal crap. Thank you so much for what both of you are doing. It's truly my favorite podcast to listen to. Thank you. Thank you. That's really sweet. Also a funny little tidbit. So, and the other thing is with the stars and stuff, you can do that like once a week if you wanted to. So it doesn't have to be once. It can be multiple times.
Like after every episode that you listen to, if you want to go back and give it a rating, that particular episode, go for it.
Right. So all you do, the way you do that is you go to the show. This is on Apple, just so you know. You go to the show. You have to go to the show, not the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And you scroll all the way, not all the way down, but almost all the way down. Okay. Where you see 5 blank stars. And it says tap to rate. And then you can pick 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then it'll take you to and then it says you can write a review there too. So just rating it would be just clicking however many stars, and then down a tiny bit farther, it says write a review, and you click that, and then you can write in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that all the updates on the show we have? I think so.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the...
Anything else we have to share?
That's it. No.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, guys.
So we're signing off.
We are. Stay tuned for a very exciting 2025. We have a lot of fun guests in store for you.
And some new things coming.
Yay.
It'll be cool.
Okay.
So, all right, guys. Happy New Year and see y'all on the next episode.
Bye.